The morning sun cast long shadows across the fields of New Haven as Jake Morrison walked through the rows of corn with his daughter Lucy. The 8-year-old girl skipped beside him, her blonde hair bouncing with each step as she chattered about the butterflies she had seen near the creek. "Dad, why do the blue ones always fly higher than the yellow ones?" Lucy asked, tugging on his worn work shirt. Jake smiled and knelt down to her level. "Maybe they're trying to get a better view of our farm," he said, pointing to the vast fields that stretched toward the horizon. "Or maybe they just like to show off." Lucy giggled and ran ahead to chase another butterfly that had landed on a cornstalk. Jake watched her with the kind of deep contentment that came from knowing his daughter was safe and happy. 3 years had passed since the transport accident that took his wife Sarah, and every day since then had been about building a good life for Lucy on this distant world. New Haven sat on the edge of human space, 15 light years from Earth. The colony had started with just 500 people, but now 3,000 souls called this place home. What had once been empty grassland now buzzed with activity. Farms stretched for miles in every direction, dotted with small houses and connected by dirt roads that kicked up dust clouds when the supply trucks passed. The colonists had chosen this world because the soil was rich and the climate was mild. 2 suns provided plenty of warmth, and the long-growing seasons meant they could harvest crops almost year-round. It was a simple life, but it was a good life. "Dad, come look at this," Lucy called from near the edge of the field. Jake jogged over to where she was crouched down, examining something in the dirt. She had found a small plant with purple leaves that neither of them had seen before. "What do you think it is?" she asked, her brown eyes wide with curiosity. "I'm not sure, sweetheart. We should ask Dr. Grant about it later." Jake made a mental note to bring the plant to the colony's doctor. Lisa Grant knew more about the local plant life than anyone else in the settlement. They walked back toward their small house, which sat on a hill overlooking the main part of the colony. Jake had built it himself using local wood and stone, with a wide porch where they often sat in the evenings to watch the sunset. Behind the house was a small garden where Lucy grew flowers and Jake kept a few vegetables for their own table. As they approached the house, Jake noticed a small transport ship landing at the colony's main pad. The vessel was painted in the blue and silver colors of the Zephyrian Trade Consortium. Jake recognized it as the Swift Current, captained by a friendly alien named Xehanort, who visited the colony every few months. "Look, Lucy, our Zephyrian friends are back," Jake said, pointing to the ship. Lucy clapped her hands together. "Can we go see them, Dad, please?" Jake checked his watch. It was still early, and he had finished most of his morning chores. "Sure, but we need to clean up first." They went inside their house, which was modest but comfortable. The main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a stone fireplace that kept them warm during the cooler months. Lucy's drawings covered one wall, showing stick figures of her and Jake along with various animals she had seen around the colony. After washing their hands and faces, they walked down the hill toward the colony center. The main street was already busy with people going about their daily work. Jake waved to Paul Hughes, the colony's security chief, who was checking the power lines that connected the various buildings. "Morning, Jake," Paul called out. "You and Lucy heading to see our visitors?" "Lucy wouldn't forgive me if we didn't," Jake replied with a grin. Paul laughed. "My kids are the same way. They love hearing Xehanort says stories about other worlds." They continued down the street, passing the school where Mary Walsh was setting up for the day's lessons. The teacher spotted Lucy and waved from the doorway. "Don't forget, Lucy, we're starting our lesson about Earth history today," Mary called out. "I'll be there, Miss Walsh," Lucy replied, but her attention was already focused on the alien ship. The colony's landing pad was located near the administrative building where Helen Carter ran the day-to-day operations of New Haven. Helen was talking with Xehanort when Jake and Lucy arrived. The Zephyrian captain stood nearly 7 feet tall, with blue skin and long arms that ended in hands with 6 fingers each. His species had been trading with humans for over 20 years, and they were considered good friends. "Jake, Lucy," Xehanort called out in his musical voice. "It is good to see you both again." "Hello, Xehanort," Jake said, shaking the alien's hand. "How was your journey?" "Peaceful and profitable," Xehanort replied. "I bring news from the trade routes and some items that might interest your people." Lucy stepped forward, no longer shy. Around the alien trader as she had been during his first visits. "Did you bring any of those crystal flowers from Altair?" Xehanort's large eyes twinkled with amusement. "I might have a few in my cargo hold. But first, I must conduct business with Administrator Carter." Helen Carter smiled at Lucy's eagerness. "Don't worry, Lucy. I'm sure Captain Xehanort will have time to show you his goods after we finish our trade discussions." As the adults talked about grain prices and shipping schedules, Lucy wandered around the landing pad, fascinated by the alien ship's design. Jake kept one eye on her while listening to the conversation. The trade relationship with the Zephyrians had been beneficial for both species. The aliens bought human agricultural products, which were apparently quite popular on several worlds, while the humans received manufactured goods and rare materials that were difficult to produce on a colony. Dr. Lisa Grant arrived with her medical kit, as she always did when ships visited the colony. It was standard procedure to check for any diseases or biological contamination, though the Zephyrians had proven to be remarkably clean in their trading practices. "Everything looks normal," Lisa announced after scanning the ship and its captain. "No biological hazards detected." Xehanort bowed slightly. "Your caution is wise, Dr. Grant. My people appreciate humans who think ahead." Jake noticed that Lucy had found a small group of other children who had come to see the visiting ship. Among them were Tommy Baker, the blacksmith's son, and Katie Ross, whose parents ran the colony's general store. The children were all fascinated by the alien technology, asking questions about how the ship worked and what other worlds looked like. "Dad," Lucy said, running back to Jake's side. "Xehanort says there are worlds where the trees grow upside down and the rivers flow in the sky." Jake chuckled. "That does sound pretty amazing." "It is true," Xehanort confirmed. "The universe is full of wonders, young Lucy. Perhaps someday you will see them for yourself." The morning passed quickly as the colonists and their visitor conducted their business. Xehanort's ship was loaded with containers of grain, vegetables, and preserved fruits. In return, the Zephyrian captain provided the colony with advanced water purification systems, medical supplies, and communication equipment. As the trading session ended, Jake realized it was nearly time for Lucy to go to school. He was about to call her over when she came running up to him, holding a small crystal flower that seemed to glow with its own inner light. "Xehanort gave this to me," she said, her face bright with joy. "He said it will always remind me that there are friends among the stars." Jake felt a warmth in his chest as he looked at his daughter's happiness. This was what he had wanted for her when they came to New Haven. A life filled with wonder and possibility, far from the crowded cities and complex politics of Earth. "That's very kind of him," Jake said, ruffling Lucy's hair. "Now we need to get you to school before Miss Walsh starts her lesson." As they walked back up the hill toward the school, Jake reflected on how good their life had become. New Haven was everything he had hoped for when he decided to leave his military career behind. The colony was peaceful, the people were friendly, and Lucy was growing up surrounded by the kind of community that looked out for one another. The sound of Xehanort's ship lifting off echoed across the valley as father and daughter made their way to the school. Jake watched the vessel disappear into the morning sky. Already looking forward to the captain's next visit, he had no way of knowing that it would be the last peaceful morning they would ever share. The attack came without warning on a Tuesday morning when most of the colonists were just starting their daily work. Jake was in his garden pulling weeds when the sky above New Haven suddenly filled with massive ships. The vessels were dark and angular, nothing like the smooth curves of Ziphian traders or human transport ships. Lucy was inside the house practicing her letters when the first explosion shook the ground. The windows rattled, and she dropped her pencil as a deep rumbling sound rolled across the valley. She ran to the window and saw her father standing in the garden, staring up at the sky with an expression she had never seen on his face before. "Dad?" She called through the open door. Jake's military training kicked in immediately. The ships above were warships, and their weapons were already firing at targets across the colony. He could see bright flashes of energy striking the communication tower and the power station. This was not a raid or a mistake. This was a full assault. "Lucy!" he shouted, running toward the house. "Get inside and stay away from the windows." More explosions rocked the colony as the alien ships continued their bombardment. Jake could see buildings catching fire in the distance and people running in panic through the streets. The colony's small defense systems tried to respond, but their weapons were designed to deal with pirates and raiders, not a fleet of military vessels. Jake grabbed his old service rifle from the closet and checked the ammunition. He had hoped never to need the weapon again, but his years as a Marine had taught him to always be prepared. He also pulled out a small emergency kit that contained medical supplies and emergency food. "Dad, what's happening?" Lucy asked, her voice shaking as another explosion lit up the sky. "Bad people are attacking our home," Jake said, trying to keep his voice calm even though his heart was racing. "I need you to be very brave right now, okay?" Through the window, Jake could see dark shapes dropping from the alien ships. The objects looked like landing pods, and they were scattered all across the colony. As each pod hit the ground, armored figures emerged and began moving toward the buildings. Jake's blood ran cold as he got his first clear look at the attackers. They were tall and reptilian, with thick scales covering their bodies and advanced armor that seemed to absorb the light around it. Each one carried weapons that glowed with the same energy he had seen in the bombardment. These were professional soldiers, not raiders looking for easy targets. "Lucy, remember the hiding place I showed you?" Jake asked urgently. She nodded, tears starting to form in her eyes. Jake had built a small hidden room behind the fireplace after they first moved to New Haven. He had told Lucy it was just in case of emergencies, like bad storms or wild animals. He had never imagined they would need it for something like this. "I want you to go there right now and be very quiet," he said, helping her toward the fireplace. "No matter what you hear, don't come out until I come to get you." "But Dad, I'm scared," Lucy whispered. Jake knelt down and took her small hands in. "I know, sweetheart. But you're the bravest girl I know. Just like when you helped that hurt bird last month, remember? You knew what to do even when you were scared." Lucy nodded and gave him a tight hug. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, Lucy, more than all the stars in the sky." Jake helped her into the hidden space and closed the panel just as he heard heavy footsteps approaching their house. Through the window, he could see 3 of the reptilian soldiers moving up the hill. Their armor was scarred and battle-worn, and their weapons hummed with deadly energy. Jake positioned himself behind the kitchen table and aimed his rifle at the door. His hands were steady despite the fear running through his body. He had been in combat before, but this felt different. This time he was not fighting for a mission or orders. He was fighting for his daughter's life. The first alien soldier kicked down the door with tremendous force, sending wood splinters flying across the room. Jake fired immediately, his shot striking the creature in the chest. The bullet seemed to barely scratch the armor, but it was enough to make the soldier stumble backward. The second soldier raised his weapon, but Jake was already moving. He rolled behind the couch as a blast of energy burned through the air where he had been standing. The beam left a smoking hole in the wall behind him. Jake came up firing. this time aiming for the gaps in the alien's armor. His second shot found its mark, striking the creature in the neck. Dark blood sprayed across the room as the soldier fell. The third soldier was smarter and more cautious. He stayed in the doorway and began firing short bursts into the room, trying to force Jake out of cover. Each energy blast set something new on fire, and soon smoke was filling the air. Jake knew he could not win a long fight. His rifle only had so much ammunition, and more soldiers would arrive soon. He needed to end this quickly. He grabbed one of Lucy's school books and threw it across the room. When the soldier turned to track the movement, Jake shot him through the side of his helmet. For a moment, the house was quiet except for the distant sounds of battle from the rest of the colony. Jake's ears were ringing from the gunshots, and his hands shook as he reloaded his rifle. He had killed 3 enemy soldiers, but he knew there would be more. He was right. Heavy footsteps outside told him that reinforcements were arriving. Through the broken door, he could see at least 5 more soldiers approaching the house. Their leader was bigger than the others, with additional armor and what looked like command markings on his helmet. "Human," the leader called out in heavily accented English. "We know you are in there. Surrender now and your death will be quick." Jake did not answer. Instead, he moved to a better position where he could see the door and one of the windows. If they wanted him, they would have to come and take him. "We are looking for young humans," the alien continued. "We know there is a child in this dwelling. Give us the child, and we will let you live." Jake's blood turned to ice. They were specifically hunting for children. He thought about Lucy hiding behind the fireplace and felt a rage unlike anything he had ever experienced. These creatures had come to his home, destroyed his colony, and now they wanted to take his daughter. "Come and get me," Jake shouted back. Aliens responded by throwing some kind of grenade through the window. Jake dove for cover as the device exploded, filling the room with a blinding flash and a sound that made his ears feel like they were bleeding. Half blind and dizzy, Jake kept firing as the soldiers rushed into the house. He managed to hit 2 more of them before his rifle ran empty. The alien leader grabbed him by the shirt and lifted him off the ground with one massive hand. "Where is the child?" the creature demanded, its reptilian face inches from Jake's. "Go to hell," Jake gasped. The alien threw him against the wall hard enough to crack the wooden boards. Jake felt ribs break as he hit the floor, but he forced himself to get back up. In his pocket was a small explosive device he had built for clearing tree stumps. It was not much, but it might be enough. "Search the house," the leader ordered his remaining soldiers. "Find the young human." Jake knew he had only one chance. As the soldiers began tearing the house apart, he activated the explosive and held it close to his chest. The alien leader saw what he was doing and raised his weapon, but Jake was already smiling. "This is for my daughter," he said, and triggered the device. The explosion brought down half the house and killed Jake instantly. In the confusion that followed, with dust and debris everywhere, none of the surviving aliens noticed the small figure that slipped out through a hidden tunnel that led to the forest behind the house. Lucy Morrison ran into the woods with tears streaming down her face, her father's last words echoing in her mind. Behind her, the alien soldiers searched through the rubble. Furious that their prey had escaped, the battle for New Haven continued for 3 more hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The colonists fought bravely, but they were farmers and teachers, not soldiers. By evening, the surviving humans had been loaded onto slave ships, and the aliens began stripping the planet of anything valuable. In the forest, Lucy found a hollow tree where she could hide and watch the destruction of her home. She saw the aliens burn what was left of their house and load her neighbors onto the dark ships. She stayed hidden and quiet, just like her father had taught her, and waited for the nightmare to end. Lucy Morrison spent her first night alone in the hollow of an old tree, curled up like a small animal trying to stay warm. The sounds of the alien ships and their machines echoed across the valley as they continued to strip everything valuable. From New Haven, she could see the orange glow of fires where her home used to be. When morning came, Lucy was hungry and thirsty, but she was afraid to leave her hiding place. Her father had taught her about the plants and animals in the forest during their walks together. She remembered which berries were safe to eat and where to find clean water, but everything felt different now that she was alone. On the second day, Lucy found a small stream where she could drink and wash her face. The water was cold and clear, just like the creek near their house where she used to catch minnows with her hands. She ate some purple berries that her father had shown her and tried not to think about how scared she was. From her hiding places in the forest, Lucy could see the alien soldiers moving through what was left of the colony. They were loading metal containers onto their ships and seemed to be taking everything they could carry. Sometimes she saw groups of people being marched from one building to another, but they were too far away for her to recognize anyone. By the third day, Lucy had found a better hiding spot in a cave halfway up the hill behind where her house used to be. The cave was small and hidden behind some thick bushes, but it was dry and gave her a good view of the colony below. She made a little nest out of leaves and tried to stay warm. The alien ships kept coming and going, bringing more soldiers and taking away more of her home. Lucy watched them tear down buildings and dig up the fields where her father had grown corn. They seemed to want everything, even the dirt itself. On the fourth day, Lucy saw something that made her heart feel like it was breaking all over again. The aliens had found the school where Miss Walsh used to teach. They were loading boxes of books and supplies onto their ships, and Lucy could see her own drawings being thrown into a pile of trash. The butterfly picture she had made for her father was somewhere in that pile. She wanted to run down and save it, but she knew her father would want her to stay hidden. He had died to keep her safe, and she was not going to waste his sacrifice. So she stayed in her cave and cried quietly until she had no more tears left. The fifth day brought rain, which made Lucy cold and miserable, but also helped hide her from the alien patrols. She found some roots that her father had shown her were good to eat when cooked, but she had no way to make a fire without being seen. She ate them raw and tried not to think about how much her stomach hurt. On the sixth day, Lucy was getting weaker from hunger and fear. She had been living on berries and stream water, and it was not enough to keep her strong. She was starting to think that maybe she should try to reach one of the other farms, where there might be other people hiding like her. But that evening, as she was preparing to leave her cave, Lucy heard a new sound from the sky. This was not the deep rumble of the alien warships or the sharp whine of their small fighters. This was something different, a higher-pitched noise that reminded her of the Zephyrian ship she had seen at the colony. Lucy crept to the edge of her cave and looked up. A blue and silver ship was falling from the sky, trailing smoke and fire. It was definitely a Zephyrian vessel, and it looked like it was badly damaged. The ship crashed into the forest about a mile from her hiding place, sending up a cloud of dirt and broken trees. Lucy waited until dark before she made her way toward the crash site. She was scared, but she was also desperate. If there were friendly aliens in that ship, they might be able to help her. If there were not, she was probably going to die anyway from hunger and cold. The crashed ship was the Swift Current, the same vessel that Captain Xehanort had visited the colony with just a few days before. The ship was badly damaged, with one engine completely destroyed and holes burned through the hull by alien weapons. But the main cabin was still intact. Lucy found Xehanort inside, badly hurt but still alive. The tall blue alien was trapped under some fallen metal, and there was dark blood on his clothes. When he saw Lucy, his large eyes went wide with surprise and relief. "Little Lucy," he whispered in his musical voice, "you are alive." I had hoped, but did not dare to believe. Lucy helped move the metal pieces off of Xehanort. using all her strength to lift the debris. The alien was hurt in his chest and one of his arms, but he was able to sit up with her help. "What happened to your ship?" Lucy asked. "The Catherians," Xehanort said, his voice full of anger and sadness. "They attacked me when I tried to leave your system. I was coming to trade again and saw their ships over your colony. When I tried to run, they shot me down." Lucy felt tears starting again. "They killed everyone. They took my friends away on their ships. My dad is dead." Xehanort reached out with his good hand and gently touched Lucy's shoulder. "I am sorry, small one. Your father was a good man. He would be proud of how brave you have been." Over the next 2 days, Lucy helped Xehanort fix his ship as best they could. The alien taught her which tools to use and how to connect the broken wires. It was hard work, and they had to be very quiet so the Catherian patrols would not find them. Xehanort told Lucy about the galaxy and the different species that lived among the stars. He explained that the Catherians were a warlike people who enslaved other races and stole their resources. Most other species were afraid of them and tried to stay out of their way. "But humans are different," Xehanort said as they worked on the ship's engine. "Your people have something special. You do not give up, even when things seem hopeless." "I want to give up," Lucy said quietly. "I miss my dad so much." "But you have not given up," Xehanort pointed out. "You survived when everyone else was captured or killed. You found me and helped me when I was hurt. Your father's strength lives in you." On the 7th day after the attack, they finally got the swift current working well enough to fly. The ship was still damaged, but it could make the journey to the nearest human outpost. As they prepared to leave, Lucy asked if she could visit her father's grave one more time. Xehanort helped her find the place where Jake Morrison had died fighting the Catherian soldiers. The house was gone, burned to ashes, but Lucy could still tell where it had been. She found a piece of wood that might have been part of her father's workbench and placed it on the spot where she thought he had fallen. "I promise someone will pay for what they did to you," Lucy whispered to the grave. "I promise they will be sorry they ever came to our home." Xehanort watched the small human girl make her promise and felt something cold move through his heart. He had seen many species in his travels, but humans were unique in their capacity for both love and revenge. The Catherians had made a terrible mistake when they decided to attack New Haven. As the swift current lifted off from the ruined colony, Lucy pressed her face to the window and watched her home disappear below the clouds. She was leaving everything she had ever known, but she was carrying something important with her. She was carrying the story of what had happened, and she was going to make sure the right people heard it. The ship turned toward human space, carrying the last survivor of New Haven toward a reckoning that would shake the galaxy. The damaged Zephyrian ship limped through space for 2 weeks before reaching Frontier Station Alpha. The human military outpost sat at the edge of explored space, a collection of metal structures and docking bays that served as humanity's first line of defense against unknown threats. Colonel Sam Rodriguez was reviewing patrol reports when his communications officer announced an incoming vessel requesting emergency docking. The ship identified itself as the Swift Current, but its signal was weak and distorted. When the vessel finally appeared on their screens, Rodriguez could see why. The Zephyrian trader was barely holding together, with burn marks across its hull, and one engine completely dead. Lucy Morrison clutched Xehanort's hand as their ship was guided into the station's docking bay. She had never seen a human military base before, and the sight of armed soldiers and weapons made her nervous. But these were her people, and she knew they would help her. Colonel Rodriguez met them at the airlock with a medical team. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes, but Lucy could see the hardness in his face that came from years of military service. When he saw the 8-year-old girl step off the alien ship, his expression changed to one of concern and confusion. "I'm "Colonel Rodriguez," he said, kneeling down to Lucy's level. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Lucy Morrison," she replied in a small voice. "I'm from New Haven Colony." Rodriguez felt his blood turn cold. New Haven had stopped responding to communications 10 days ago, but they had assumed it was just equipment. Failure. The colony was in a peaceful sector, far from any known threats. Dr. Amanda Foster, the station's chief medical officer, examined both Lucy and Xehanort while Colonel Rodriguez listened to their story. The Zephyrian captain provided sensor recordings of the Cytherian fleet and detailed descriptions of the attack. Lucy told them about her father's death and the destruction of her home in simple words that somehow made the tragedy even more heartbreaking. "How many ships did you see?" Rodriguez asked Xehanort. "At least 30 warships," the alien replied, "plus smaller vessels for ground assault. This was not a raid, Colonel. This was complete conquest." Rodriguez stepped outside the medical bay and immediately contacted Earth Command. The emergency transmission reached the planet within hours, and the response was swift and decisive. Every military leader, government official, and news organization on Earth received the same message. An entire human colony had been wiped out by hostile aliens. President Elizabeth Hayes called an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. The leaders of Earth's military forces gathered in the underground command center beneath Geneva, their faces grim as they watched Lucy's recorded testimony. The little girl's voice was steady as she described watching her neighbors being dragged away and her father dying to protect her. 3,700 people, said General Marcus Cole, head of the Earth Defense Force. Men, women, and children, all dead or enslaved. Admiral Kate Thompson, commander of the Earth Fleet, studied the tactical data that Xehanort had provided. "The Cytherians have never attacked a human colony before. This changes everything." President Hayes looked around the table at her military. "Commanders, options?" "We have to respond," General Cole said firmly. "If we let this stand, every human settlement in space becomes a target." "I agree," Admiral Thompson added. "But we need to be smart about this. The Cytherians have a reputation for being tough fighters. What the galactic community did not know was that humans had been preparing for exactly this kind of situation. For decades, while Earth appeared to focus on peaceful exploration and trade, they had been secretly developing advanced military technology. Project Prometheus had created weapons that surpassed anything currently known in the galaxy. "How long to mobilize the fleet?" President Hayes asked. 48 hours, Admiral Thompson replied. "I can have 200 warships ready to depart, including the Retribution." The UES Retribution was humanity's newest and most powerful warship. A massive dreadnought equipped with experimental weapons and advanced AI systems. It had never been tested in actual combat, but its capabilities on paper were impressive enough to make even veteran officers nervous. As word of the New Haven massacre spread through human space, something unprecedented happened. Colony militias volunteered to join the military response. Merchant ships offered to carry supplies. Even civilian vessels asked to be armed so they could participate in the mission. The anger was not limited to humans. Several alien species that had traded with New Haven sent messages of support. The Zephyrian Trade Consortium offered to provide intelligence about Cytherian military positions. Even some species that rarely interacted with humans expressed outrage. At the unprovoked attack on a peaceful colony, Admiral Thompson requested that Lucy be brought to Earth aboard the fastest available ship. The girl arrived at Earth's primary military base, just as the fleet was completing its preparations. She was small and quiet, but her presence had an electric effect on every person who saw her. Lucy was taken to meet Admiral Thompson in her office, overlooking the massive fleet assembly area. Through the window, they could see hundreds of warships being loaded with weapons and supplies. Each vessel represented thousands of trained soldiers and the most advanced technology humanity could produce. "Lucy," Admiral Thompson said gently, "I want you to know that we're going to make sure the people who hurt you and your father pay for what they did. Are you going to kill them all?" Lucy asked. The question caught Thompson off guard. She had expected the child to be focused on rescue or justice, not revenge. But when she looked into Lucy's eyes, she saw something that reminded her of her own children. This little girl had been forced to grow up too fast, and the innocence in her voice could not hide the steel underneath. "We're going to stop them from hurting anyone else," Thompson said carefully. Lucy nodded. "Good. My dad always said that bullies only understand when someone stands up to them." Admiral Thompson made a decision that would be remembered throughout human history. She arranged for Lucy to address the entire fleet via holographic transmission. The girl's image appeared on every ship simultaneously, showing the crews exactly who they were fighting for. "My name is Lucy Morrison," she began, her young voice carrying across the vastness of space. 10 days ago, bad aliens came to my home and killed my father. They killed my neighbors and my friends. They took away everyone I cared about." The fleet listened in complete silence as Lucy told her story. Hardened Marines wiped tears from their eyes. Ship captains clenched their fists in anger. Even the AI system seemed to process her words with something resembling emotion. "My daddy died protecting me because that's what humans do," Lucy continued. "We protect the people we love even when it's scary. Now I'm asking you to protect all the other children who can't protect themselves. Please don't let what happened to my home happen to anyone else." When the transmission ended, there was not a single person in the fleet who had any doubt about their mission. This was not just about military strategy or galactic politics. This was about a little girl who had lost everything and was counting on them to make it right. The fleet departed Earth the next morning, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Admiral Thompson stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the blue marble of Earth shrink behind them. In her pocket was a small wooden carving that Lucy had given her, something her father had made during their quiet evenings together. As the ships jumped to hyperspace, their destination was clear. The Catherian home system lay 3 weeks away, and when they arrived, the galaxy would learn what happened when humans decided that enough was enough. Back on Earth, Lucy Morrison sat in Admiral Thompson's family home, safe and cared for, but still carrying the weight of being New Haven's sole survivor. She spent her days drawing pictures and her nights having nightmares, but she never forgot the promise she had made at her father's grave. Someone was going to pay for what had happened to her family. And now, that someone was about to meet the full fury of an entire species. 3 weeks after leaving Earth, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Catherian home system. Admiral Thompson stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching her tactical display show the locations of enemy ships. What she saw surprised her. The Catherian fleet was scattered across dozens of star systems, busy conquering new worlds and enslaving their populations. Only a small defense force remained around their homeworld of Kythos Prime, the Reptilian. Aliens had grown so confident in their military superiority that they never imagined anyone would dare attack their home. "Scan shows 43 enemy vessels in the system," reported Commander Lisa Park from her position at the sensor station. "Most appear to be patrol ships and system defense platforms." Admiral Thompson studied the tactical information. The Catherians had made the same mistake that many bullies made throughout history. They had become so used to picking on weaker opponents that they forgot someone might eventually fight back. "Open a channel to all ships," Thompson ordered. "This is Admiral Thompson to all vessels. Today we keep the promise we made to Lucy Morrison. Today we show the galaxy what happens when someone hurts our children." The response from the fleet was immediate. 200 human warships moved into attack formation, their weapon systems charging and their crews ready for battle. Each ship carried the most advanced technology that humanity had ever created. Weapons that had been tested in secret laboratories, but never used in actual combat. The Catherian Defense Force detected the human fleet and immediately sent out an alarm. Commander Vextar, the same alien who had led the attack on New Haven, was in charge of the system defenses. He could not believe that the weak humans had managed to assemble such a large military force. Impossible, Vextar hissed as he watched. The sensor readings. Humans do not have warships like these. His second-in-command looked nervous. Sir, should we call for reinforcements? No, Vextar snarled. We will crush these soft-skinned fools and add their ships to our fleet. All vessels, attack formation. The Catherian ships moved to intercept the human fleet, confident that their superior technology and experience would carry the day. They had been fighting and conquering for centuries. While humans were still newcomers to galactic warfare, Admiral Thompson watched the enemy ships approach and felt a cold satisfaction. The Catherians were about to learn that humans had been perfecting the art of war for thousands of years before they ever left Earth. All ships, commence Operation Righteous Fury, Thompson commanded. The first surprise came when the human ships released thousands of small fighter drones. The mechanical devices swarmed toward the Catherian fleet like angry insects, too small and numerous for the enemy weapons to target effectively. Each drone carried a plasma warhead that could punch through even advanced armor. The second surprise was the human ships themselves. Instead of the slow, clumsy vessels the Catherians expected, the human warships moved with grace and speed that seemed impossible for their size. Advanced engines and maneuvering systems allowed them to dance around the enemy fire while delivering devastating attacks of their own. The third and final surprise was the human weapons. The kinetic bombardment systems fired projectiles at incredible speed, hitting Catherian ships with the force of small asteroids. The plasma cannons burned through enemy armor like it was paper. Most shocking of all were the fusion missiles that could destroy an entire ship with a single hit. The battle was over in less than 2 hours. The Catherian Defense Force was completely destroyed, with only a few damaged ships managing to escape. Not a single human vessel was lost, though several suffered minor damage from return fire. But Admiral Thompson was far from finished. As the surviving Catherian ships fled toward their homeworld, she opened a communication channel that broadcast across the entire system. "This is Admiral Kate Thompson of the Earth Defense Force," her voice echoed through space. "10 days ago, your forces attacked the peaceful human colony of New Haven. You killed innocent people. You enslaved children. You murdered a father who was trying to protect his daughter." On Kythos Prime, the planetary government listened to the broadcast with growing fear. They had never heard of this Admiral Thompson or the Earth Defense Force, but the destruction of their fleet spoke louder than any reputation. "You had the opportunity to show mercy at New Haven," Thompson continued. "You chose genocide instead. Now you will face the consequences of that choice." The human fleet began a systematic attack on every military installation in the Catherian system. Shipyards that had built warships for centuries were reduced to burning wreckage. Training academies where young Catherians learned to be soldiers were turned into craters. Weapons factories that had supplied conquering armies were blown apart. By precisely targeted strikes, the Catherian government sent desperate messages offering to surrender, but Admiral Thompson ignored them all. This was not about conquest or territory. This was about sending a message that would be heard across the galaxy. For 3 months, the human fleet moved through Catherian space like a force of nature. Every military base was destroyed. Every warship was hunted down and eliminated. Slave worlds were liberated, their populations given the choice to govern themselves or accept human protection. The Catherians tried to fight back, but their scattered forces were no match for the coordinated human assault. Ship after ship fell to the superior human technology and tactics. Within weeks, the once mighty Catherian military was reduced to hiding in remote systems and begging for mercy. On one of the liberated slave worlds, Admiral Thompson met with a group of rescued prisoners from New Haven. Among them was Mary Walsh, Lucy's former teacher, who had somehow survived the initial attack and 3 months of captivity. "Admiral," Mary said, tears streaming down her face, "is Lucy safe?" "She's safe," Thompson replied. "She's on Earth with my family, and she's the reason all of you are free today." Mary nodded, understanding the meaning behind those words. A little. Girl's courage and pain had moved an entire species to action. The galaxy would never be the same. The campaign finally ended when the last Catherian military vessel was destroyed in a distant star system. Admiral Thompson stood on her bridge, looking at the tactical display that showed no more enemy contacts. The mission was complete. "Admiral," Commander Park said quietly, "we're receiving surrender offers from every remaining Catherian colony. They're asking for terms." Thompson considered the request for a long moment. The Catherians were defeated, their capacity for conquest permanently crippled. Continuing the attack would serve no purpose except revenge, and humans were better than that. "Inform them that hostilities will cease immediately," she decided. "They will disarm all remaining military vessels and allow human inspectors to ensure compliance. Any worlds they have enslaved will be granted independence. And they will pay reparations to help rebuild New Haven." The terms were harsh but fair. The Catherians would survive as a species, but they would never again be a threat to peaceful worlds. The message had been sent and received throughout the galaxy. Admiral Thompson's fleet returned to Earth 6 months after leaving, carrying the rescued survivors of New Haven and the respect of every species in known space. The galaxy had learned that humans might appear peaceful, but they were capable of terrible vengeance when their children were threatened. Lucy Morrison was waiting at the spaceport when Admiral Thompson's shuttle landed. The little girl ran to the Admiral and gave her a fierce hug, finally allowing herself to cry with relief that her neighbors and teacher were coming home. "Did you keep your promise?" Lucy asked. "We kept our promise," Thompson replied. "The bad people who hurt your father will never hurt anyone else again." Lucy nodded and pulled out a small wooden carving that her father had made. It was a butterfly, the same kind they had watched together in the cornfields of New Haven. "This is for you," she said, placing it in Admiral Thompson's hands. "My dad would want you to have it." Thompson looked at the simple wooden butterfly and understood its meaning. It represented hope, transformation, and the beauty that could emerge from even the darkest tragedy. Just like Lucy herself, who had survived the worst that the galaxy could offer and still found the strength to trust and care for others, the story of New Haven became legend throughout human space and beyond. It was a reminder that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their military might, but their willingness to sacrifice everything to protect the innocent. The galaxy had learned to respect that strength, and peace followed in its wake.